Welcome to Dominion Ministries. My name is Ben. I'm so glad that you would join me today. In John 15, Jesus says, every branch in me that does not produce fruit, my Father cuts down. And every branch in me that does produce fruit, my Father prunes it that it might produce more. And I've heard 1,000 sermons regarding this. This is just a few ideas, that maybe hopefully would be encouraging to you. Some thoughts that I've had about that here in the last couple of days. 2020 was a pretty crazy year for a lot of us. You know, we had a pandemic. Some would say a quote unquote pandemic. Either way, everything went crazy. We had cities burning down, the riots, race riots, George Floyd, COVID, so much social unrest, the disputed election that came up, all these different things. It was a really wild year. But it got me thinking about this shrub that I had in my backyard. So when my wife and I, we lived about 18 years in a house that we had built in the city where I pastor. And we moved here, and before I was ever actually part of the church. But there was this ugly shrub in the backyard. It was just this hideous looking thing. Craggly, weirdly developed, and just this ugly, hideous old thing. Looked like it had arthritis. And it was just gross. So one day, thinking I was getting rid of it, because I didn't think there was much left that could be salvaged from this thing. There was some green on it, but the leaves are more yellowy than green. And I watched it for, a handful of summers, and it's like, man, thing's ugly. So I decided I didn't like it anymore. And I was mowing the lawn, lifted up the mower deck as high as she could go, and boom, ran that thing over a whole bunch of times, lowered the deck, ran it over again, lowered the deck, ran it over again. I had that thing down to the dirt. I had just obliterated that shrub. Well, it wasn't in the too far distant future, maybe within another month or so, I noticed that it was starting to grow again. But it was growing almost straight up and full, and these beautiful green leaves on it. And it was just like an incredible looking shrub. So every year, because I'm not much of I've dabbled with plants, some house plants and gardening, and not a huge green thumb. I'm like, instead of just going out and trimming it up and being Mr., horticulturist or whatever, I just went out and ran it over every year. And that thing, for as long as we were there, it grew tall and beautiful. It was an incredible looking shrub. And sometimes, like in 2020, we go through times when it feels like the great lawnmower has run over us and destroyed everything. I've gone through different seasons of my life where it feels like that, where everything seems to be falling apart, nothing's going right. But there's seasons where, what's inside of us gets proven. I'm really skeptical. I'm really skeptical of people that, I'm all for giving people a shot, and I want to develop leaders. I love developing and mentoring, leaders in the church and young leaders especially. But I'm skeptical of those, I got a great call of God on my life, and God's got big plans for me, which, I want to nurture that desire and that sense of destiny and call. But it's those that have a track record of giving up, and a track record of quitting when it gets hard. I greatly question and am skeptical of the call to ministry in those that when it gets hard, they get discouraged right away and they want to quit. I've had many leaders like that. And hopefully you can mentor them through that. And some of them you can't. It's just too much. It's just too hard, and they don't have it. I hate seeing that. But if you teach people to embrace it and work through it and let God stretch you, let God prune you, because to accomplish what God wants you to accomplish in life, there are things that need to get cut off. There are areas of your life that are not producing the fruit that God wants. If God's called you to be an apple tree and you're busy trying to produce pears, God's going to have to deal with that, right? Jesus says you don't grab grapes off of thorn bushes, right? And no one goes to you don't go to an apple tree expecting to find figs. God has to cut things out of your life to get you where you need to go and to help you accomplish what he wants you to do. I've been accused of being way too focused and narrow in how I view things and in what I'm willing and not willing to do. But it's always by people that have 1,000 irons in the fire. They're doing this thing and they're doing that thing, and boy, you should be this and that or the other. It's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. I'm focused on my thing. I've got people around me that take care of the other things, and I'm focused. I'm extremely focused in on the call of God and fulfilling what the mandate God's put in my life. That included starting Dominion Ministries, the side ministry. It includes pastoring Triumphant Life Church, raising up leaders, training people, impacting our local community, leveraging Dominion for seeing rural churches strengthened, rural ministries strengthened, see rural churches planted, both here at home and abroad. I'm really focusing in on things that are important to my heart that I wasn't able to accomplish in any other way. I needed the ability to, because of my focus and because of what I need to accomplish, because just trying to do things a different way wasn't going to get me to the area. So I had to cut off certain things so I could focus in on that. And, there's other things I've had to cut off in my life to accomplish leading my church. If you have to have Sunday dinner with your in-laws, every week, and you feel the call to pastoral ministry, well, just forget it. Forget pastoral ministry. It's not that you can't ever see your in-laws or have lunch with them, but like when you have a supernatural call like that, there are things that have to be cut off so you can be fruitful in the thing that God has set forth for you to accomplish. And also likewise, we use 2020 as an opportunity to examine our church, the health of our church, cut off dead things, really focus in on like 2 or 3 mission critical areas. We pulled funding from some of our other ministries, and and reallocated them into the places. There are certain ministries that we just have had to cut off over the years. There are leaders that we've had to let go over the years. There are people we've had asked to leave. There's people in the church that have had to, go through church discipline, pruning. But don't be afraid of the difficult things. If you're going to make it, 1, as a Christian, and 2, if you feel a call to ministry, which every Christian is, I often liken it that my job as a pastor is to be the coach. My job is to make sure the team gets out to do the ministry. Their job is to be the ministers. My job is to equip and empower them to go. Like my job as a pastor is to coach the team right? If you watch, you watch whatever sport you like, the coach isn't out there with the team, right? He's talking to the team. He's giving directions and instructions to the team through, while they're playing, and while they're out doing, and then training them. But when they're not out playing, if they're not on the field, out on the court, out on the ice or whatever, they're training and equipping and practicing and getting things right and getting things, accomplished. So everybody's out there doing the right thing. But for you to fulfill the ministry God's put on you, you might not be a pastor, might not be out a full-time whatever, but God's called you to reach people. If you can't embrace the difficulty and the challenges, you're not going to make it. If you can't embrace the pruning of God, if it has to be a certain way and no other way, you'll never accomplish anything. Like the massive ego that some Christians have is staggering, especially, how do I put it? Immature Christians. It's just so hard. I don't think I can do it, Pastor. I've got so much going on, and I'm sensitive to that. You don't want to burn people out. It's like, yeah, I think you can do more than you think you are. Isn't Christ alive in you, right? Doesn't he supply supernatural power for us to accomplish his work? I remember being in youth ministry, and some of the things my pastor would ask me to do, it's like, oh man, he's asking so much of me. And I remember talking with some other leaders recently, a couple of months ago, I was talking with them. And I was joking, I was being sensitive to them, but also joking, because they want to get into further pastoral ministry. They'd like to pastor a church one day, and really get further. Well, they're involved in other areas of ministry. I was like, man, we're just so overwhelmed right now with everything. And I said, well, number one, I'm sensitive to that. I don't want you guys burning out. If you need to take a step back, that's fine. However, I don't think taking a step back from ministry is what you need to do. Look for other areas that are not mission critical to where God is headed. You're headed and where God wants you to be heading, and cut them off. What's one thing right now that you can cut off and get rid of? That's sucking away your resource, your emotional and mental resources from this. Your husband and wife, that's not on the table. You've got children, you can't do that. But what are some other things? You have to have a job, you can't cut that out. But what are some other things going on? And they were able to identify a few things that maybe they just needed to let go of. And I said, here's the thing, guys, here's the thing. I'm sensitive to how you feel. But I said, I listened to you guys talking and how hard it is. And I'm not belittling that, but what I wouldn't give to be in your position right now, where that's the big overwhelming thing that I'm dealing with right now. I said, the further you get in ministry and God uses you and you grow and God opens up opportunities, the bigger battles there are, the bigger responsibilities that you have, the more critical things are, the more costly mistakes are. And I said, so cut off the things that are not getting you where you need to go. If you're a pastor or a leader, who's not accomplishing what they need to accomplish? Do they need to get pruned a little bit and corrected and trained, or do they need to be cut off? That ministry, is it accomplishing what it needs to? Does it need pruning or cutting off? How about your personal life? How about your finances? The Lord spoke to me about a month ago. There are two things that I want you to do away with regarding your finances. I don't want you doing this anymore, and I don't want you doing that anymore. And so I've had to scale back in two areas. They're not sinful, they're not bad, but the Lord's like, that's not accomplishing and getting you where I'm going to want you to go. And so I don't want you sending money that direction. I need you to send it there. We take some of our personal resources and fund Dominion ministries so we can accomplish the church planting in missions outreach that we're working on in Bangladesh with Brother Herman Hira. He's studying church planting right now at a Bible college. He's a gifted evangelist who's been out serving God for a number of years, Elohim Ministries. So we can resource him, so we can purchase that property there that he can live on. He can become more self-sufficient regarding his food, so he can get chickens and some animals and have a garden and grow his own food. He can use also as a church, so a meeting place to use as a church, and then as a missions base. And so I need to cut back on these things so we can funnel money that way. You know, they say that Christians spend more money on dog food than they do on missions. We spend a lot of money on dog food, but we have 2 golden retrievers that we're in business with a friend of ours on. Golden Lunar Retrievers is a business. And 50% of the profits, and I stress the word profits, not every. So after puppies are sold, we look at the costs from that litter, right? Dog food, vet bills, etc. And then whatever the profits are left over, 50% of that goes to feed orphans in Honduras, to City of Refuge Orphanage in Comayagua, Honduras, which I personally visited. And I hope to get over to Bangladesh to do some ministry there with Brother Herman. He can interpret for me. No, Brother Javed Masi has invited me to Pakistan to preach, and there's some great opportunities ahead of me. Not ready to pull the trigger on all those yet, but like, instead of just having pets, we decided to leverage having pets for the work of feeding orphans. Instead of whatever it is, like, you know, just be wise, be smart. God will give you creative ideas, but like pruning back on certain things. Like Americans spend hundreds of dollars a month on, just like the average person spends like, what is it, like $100 a month just on, like, you know, Starbucks. I mean, it's crazy, ridiculous. Like the issue is not, I think, that we have a lack of resource, but we have a lack of self-restraint. Going out to eat, picking up something at the gas station all the time. I mean, there's little things. So like every week I go out. I used to be notorious to just be working and forget to bring something with me, so I just run out real quick to the gas station. Now, every couple of weeks or so, I go and I buy just a bunch of like stuff I can eat here at the office. And if, you know, what I'd spend in like a week, just grabbing something quick at, you know, we have a Casey's here, grabbing a couple slices of Casey's pizza and a Dr. Pepper, or whatever, you know, whatever your favorite drink is. A Dr. Pepper, though, however, is the superior beverage. You know, I've cut back on that, and I'm using, and I just buy stuff that I can just have here quick and keep doing my thing. And so, you know, it's just like smart little things that we can do, that of pruning that can cause greater growth in other areas. So embrace what God has for you. Embrace the pruning. Don't feel bad when the great lawnmower of life runs you over. God sometimes is allowing things to, like, you feel like you just got mowed down, but God's going to produce life and fruitfulness in your life. My friends, embracing God's pruning is a path to dominion. Not being afraid to prune people or cut things off and cut people out too is part of the pathway to dominion. My friends, God wants you to be fruitful. He wants you to multiply. He wants us to subdue the earth, bring it under subjection, bring it under kingdom rule, and to bring the gospel to the ends of the earth. My friends, let's walk in dominion.